All right, I think we're going. So, lying on your backs, begin to notice where your attention first goes in your body. Does your attention get called to the fact that you're lying here, taking a moment of rest, relaxing, giving yourself the gift of listening? Or maybe you notice particular places that are tight or uncomfortable. And in that you can notice, where is your brain trained to go the most? Is your brain trained to go to the pain? The brain trained to the pain. And how do we expand that practice into feeling more of you? More of the wellness, the well-being, the support, the life that is working in your body, that is supporting every action, every movement that you engage in. And as you lie here, get a sense of the length of your spine. How do you feel your back lying here? What are the messages that you've heard in your life about your back, your posture? What have people told you about the shape of your back? And just lying here, see if you can put those messages aside and find out what's true right now in this moment. Feeling the base of your spine, your sacrum, which rests inside your pelvis, in the center. Feel the pressure of your sacrum on the floor. And notice if you have a little more pressure behind the right or left buttock area. Can you sense if your pelvis is tilted a little bit to the right or to the left? A little up or down? And remember, some of these things I suggest you'll be able to easily notice, and many things, especially if you're new to the work, you won't be able to notice at all. So what you can do is attend to how you attend to that. You might tell yourself, oh my gosh, I can't feel anything, there must be something wrong with me. Or, oh my gosh, I can't feel anything, there must be something wrong with her instructions, she must have said them wrong. Or, I'm not doing this right. As you do more and more of this, you might fall into the pattern that I fell into at a certain point of, oh my gosh, I can feel so many different things, what am I supposed to actually be paying attention to? So bringing your attention back to the back of your sacrum and how your pelvis rests in your tissues. And then track your attention into your lower back. The low back usually curves a little forward, a little away from the floor. So for most of us, there's a little less pressure on the floor in the low back region as it curves away. Some people's low backs don't even touch. Feel your particular curve and see if you can sense if there's a difference, again, between the left and the right sides of how your back curves away from the floor. Does one side rest a little more closely to the floor or a little farther away? And then follow with your attention as closely as you can to the point where pressure begins to increase again into the lower middle spine, the thoracic spine where your ribs connect into the vertebrae. So up from your sacrum, your low back curves away from the floor and back down to the floor, and you begin to feel more pressure again through the middle of your back, the back of your ribs, the back of your shoulder blades. And again, notice the right side and the left side. What touches more, what touches less? What feels lighter? What feels heavier? And then again, with your attention following up your spine to where your neck begins to curve away from the floor. Just like your lower back curves away from the floor, your neck curves forward. Less pressure. For many of you, no pressure behind the back of your neck. Following it with your attention to where your neck connects to the base of your skull. And then again, you feel pressure at your precise but uniquely your place where your head rests on the floor or your pillow. And just feel that connection from the back of your head. And then slowly, one leg at a time, bend your knees up. And just press through your feet and relax. Increase the pressure through the soles of your feet and release the pressure through the soles of your feet. And feel each time you press, where does the pressure go? Into what part of your foot? Does it go more into your heels or the ball of your feet? Does it go more into the outside or the inside? Is it easier to press more through one foot than the other? Maybe you just naturally have a little more pressure into one foot than the other side. Notice these differences. In some ways, we all think that we hope for symmetry, for sameness, for evenness, but it's the differences that give your mind something to attend to, something to notice, something to wake up in the moment to. In your experience. Pressing and releasing, begin to take your attention up your legs into your knees. And notice the influence of your knee joint each time you press and release the pressure through your feet. How your lower leg connects to your upper leg. And then feel how that pressure travels from your foot to your lower leg, up through your thigh and into your pelvis. And see if you can detect just the slightest rocking of your pelvis. So that as you press with your feet, for some of you, you'll notice that your pelvis rocks back a little bit, flattening your lower back a little towards the floor. And as you release the pressure, you may feel your lower back lifting just slightly away from the floor again. See if you can sense this possibility. And then you can grow it, make it a little more intentional, so that you intentionally roll your pelvis back and flatten your lower back into the floor as you press through your feet. And as you release the pressure through your feet, you let your pelvis roll forward again, letting the arch return in your lower back. And as your pelvis rocks a little forward and back, again notice, does it rock a little to the left or a little to the right? If you noticed a tendency to push more with one foot, that may influence the fact that your pelvis does not roll in an exact symmetrical way. And sometimes if you can't feel any of these differences, just imagine, well, if I could feel something different, I'll bet. If I were to make my best guess, I would guess that I go a little bit this way. or a little bit that way. And then just pause and rest for a moment, either with your knees up or down. This is where it becomes really apparent that we're not doing aerobics, because you're resting already. And what is resting in these moments of rest? What is resting? All of these movements are designed to speak to your nervous system. We're giving your brain a new education on movement. And it's not used to attending to yourself in this way. So we let it rest. And when it rests, where does it wander to? And again, bend your knees up, please, one at a time. And just feel how your feet are resting on the floor now. And this time, bring your attention more to your breath. And as you breathe in, see if you can really let your lower belly fill with air. So instead of letting your chest fill with air with the inhalation, you're letting your abdomen fill with air and letting the air go out. And you can just imagine that as you draw the air in from the room and it comes down through your trunk, as if you're filling a balloon in your lower abdomen, filling it with air so that your lower belly comes forward, but you can also feel or imagine the sensation of the air being filled in the back part of you, filling the front side of your sacrum, filling the front of your low back. And then exhaling and feeling the air come back up through the chest and out the mouth. And if this filling and emptying of your abdomen creates a movement of your abdomen expanding forward, how might that movement influence rocking in your pelvis? Notice, is there just the slightest tendency as you breathe in and you allow your lower abdomen to relax and expand? Does your pelvis want to rock a little forward or a little backwards? And as you release the air, notice also. And you can intentionally try it both ways. Breathing in, letting your pelvis roll a little forward so your lower back arches away from the floor just slightly. And breathing out and letting your pelvis roll back so your lower back comes towards the floor again. Breathing in, arching away. Breathing out and relaxing back to neutral. And then try it the other way. Breathing in, letting your pelvis roll a little backwards so your lower back flattens just slightly towards the floor. And breathing out and letting it lift and arch away from the floor again. And then at which point, actually go ahead and just release trying to make it one way or another, and let the breath just guide the subtle movement in your pelvis. Because it's very likely, in fact, let me ask, how many of you feel the natural tendency of your pelvis to roll forward as you inhale and expand your abdomen? Just raise your hand. Pelvis rolls forward as you breathe in and backwards as you breathe out. Okay. And how many of you feel it the other way? That your pelvis moves forward with the exhalation? Good. Okay. Yeah. So it's about half and half. Nobody's wrong here. So how would you pace the pressing through your feet to enhance this movement? So for some of you, you would press through your feet with the inhalation, and together the pressing through your feet and the inhalation would rock your pelvis back, and you would exhale, and you would release the pressure through your feet, and your back would curve away from the floor. Other of you would breathe in, letting your abdomen expand and your back curve away from the floor. And as you breathe out, you just give a subtle support, a subtle pressure through your feet as you breathe out, letting your pelvis roll back and your low back flatten into the floor. So see if you can combine these two motions in a way that feels harmonious for your system. As if your pelvis is just floating on the sea, rocking forward and back, taking your spine along with it, your ribs, your neck, even your head. Notice if you can feel any movement, lifting and lowering of your chin towards your chest as your pelvis rocks forward and back. And then pause for a moment and try pressing through your feet alternately, sort of with the opposing direction of how you're breathing. So if it felt natural to you to press through your feet while inhaling, and you were practicing that, then try pressing through your feet with your exhalation. And of course, if you were one of those that felt that it was more natural to press through your feet with your exhalation, then try pressing through your feet with your inhalation. And what kind of dynamic does that set up in your system? What sort of label do you give a movement like this that feels counter to what is natural? In this work, we want to encourage you to cultivate the words, "Isn't that interesting?" But often, the first time we're exposed to movements that feel incongruous with what feels more harmonious, we'll often say, "This is wrong. Why would I do this? What point is there to this?" Or any number of things. So just notice what your self-talk is or was. I'd be interested in hearing it later. And then return back to the movements that feel more harmonious combined together with how you inhale and exhale, and at what point you involve the gentle pressing and releasing through your feet to bring the pelvis into full sway, forward and back. And when you've done that for a few breaths, just rest for a moment, either with your legs bent or long. And in resting, notice how you feel yourself lying here now. Your sense of your sacrum, your spine as it curves away from the floor, back in contact with the floor, and away from the floor again, up to your head. Notice where your mind wanders. Does it stay in the context of sensations in your body? Or do you start thinking about what happened this morning? What's going to happen this afternoon? And again, one leg at a time, bend your knees up, please. And keeping the movements in a very comfortable range. Again, we're not stretching. Just gently rock your knees to the left and to the right. For some of you, you may take your knees all the way to the floor. For others of you, you may just rock them an inch to the left and to the right. So stay in that range that's effortless, comfortable and easy, as smooth as you can. And for some of us that isn't smooth, but it's as smooth as you can. Feel what happens in your pelvis as you take your knees from side to side. Feel that your pelvis rocks from side to side. Feel how the weight shifts through the soles of your feet. And you may even feel the weight shifting from left shoulder blade to right shoulder blade, as the rotation that starts at your knees works its way into your pelvis, up through your spine, between your shoulders. Some of you may even feel a slight invitation for your head to roll from side to side. Just let your neck go. And notice if your head wants to roll in the same direction as your knees or the opposite direction. And just try it a few times. Try it a few times rolling your head the same direction. What's that like? And when you've done it a few times the same direction, noticing your breathing, noticing how your whole spine rotates, then you can take it in the opposite direction. And again, if I were to poll, about half of you, maybe 2/3, would find it more natural to take your head the same direction, and the other half or 2/3 would find it more natural to take your head in the opposite direction. Okay, and rest your knees in the middle. And with your knees bent, gently begin pressing through your feet, letting your pelvis rock back, flattening your lower back, and releasing it. And see if you can feel the incremental pressure through your spine. So from the base of your spine, where you feel your sacrum rocking, to the base of your head, you have 24 vertebrae. A very rare one of you might have 23 or 25, but for the most part, there are 24 individual movable parts throughout your spine. So as you rock your pelvis, feel each of those vertebrae in your low back responding, as if you could feel each of those vertebrae in your middle back responding in some way, as if you can follow that chain of movement with your attention all the way up into your neck, feeling how the movement of your pelvis begins to speak to your head, as Myrna spoke of earlier in class. And the release of movement, not just how you press through your feet and all that movement reverberates up your spine, but how does it release incrementally, as if one by one each of your vertebrae come back to their resting position. And we're going to be growing this movement, so if you find that your feet feel slippery, you may want to take your socks off. So again, reconnecting with the movement, pressing through the feet, and this time, when you've fully rocked your sacrum back and you begin to feel your lower back flatten towards the floor, what would it be like to gently begin to lift your sacrum up, just your sacrum, and then place it back down and let your pelvis roll back to neutral. And then what would it be like if you pressed through your feet, felt that connection into and through the floor, rocking your pelvis, lifting your sacrum, and just the first 1, 2, or 3 lower lumbar vertebrae, and then placed them back down as if you were placing them one at a time on the floor. Gently, gently listening. If there's anything not comfortable or easy about this movement, then don't do it. Just imagine. Just imagine. And continue like this until you're lifting your pelvis up and lifting one vertebrae at a time up your low back into your middle back, but only going as high, only lifting as high as you can, and staying fully in that effortless range where your breath is full, your jaw is relaxed, your shoulders aren't tensing. The breath is the most consistent barometer of the amount of effort that you're putting into any movement. And sometimes it's necessary to put a little effort into a movement, but rarely in a Feldenkrais lesson. And rarely out in life do we need to put nearly as much effort into our everyday activities as our system has been confused to think. So pressing through the feet, feeling the sacrum roll back and lift. Each of the lower vertebrae lifting one at a time off the floor, and then placing them back gently one at a time back to your resting place. Feeling the influence of this movement all the way up your spine as you feel your feet, as you feel your pelvis, as you sense the vertebrae moving. What else is going on behind your shoulder blades, in your arms, in your neck and your head, with your breath? And then just let it all go and relax for a moment. What's your sense of your spine now? Is it changing? Is the imagination of how your pelvis, your sacrum, your spine rests in your tissues, getting clearer, less clear. Are you noticing new aches and pains? How might you listen to your body differently? And again, bend your knees up. And this time, interlace your fingers and hands. And place your hands behind your head, sort of at the base of your head, near your neck, but not your neck. And bring your elbows together and connect into your breath. And notice, would you be more likely to lift your head with the inhalation or the exhalation? Don't actually do it, just notice where the impulse is. Where is it going to be easy? With the inhalation or the exhalation. And when you're really ready, start, but just start with just the weight of your head, so that your head actually doesn't lift away from the mat, but you take the weight of your head off the mat, which means you're not really moving other than changing the pressure forces. So you breathe either in or out. You draw your elbows in the direction towards your knees. You feel what supports you, what presses down into the floor so that the weight of your head can lift off the floor. Really connecting to the support underneath you. So taking your attention from the weight of your head, the 15 to 20 pounds of it, into what presses, what connects, what supports, and continue increasing that pressure into the floor so that eventually, lightly and easily, your head begins to lift up off the floor. And it's almost as if you lift your head, and then you lift your first cervical vertebrae, the second, and then the third, and the fourth. And you place your head back down with as much attention to detail. Feeling how your body does or does not support you, and moving only within the realm that you can discover full, supportive, effortless movement in lifting your head. Lifting and lowering, feeling the influence on your trunk, your breath, your jaw, maybe even the pressure under your feet. And then just rest for a moment, keeping your knees up. You can relax your arms if you'd like. Just resting. And then this time, interlace your fingers in front of you. And then I'm going to have you interlace them non-habitually. So you're just going to move them one finger over to the right or to the left. Just feel that sensation for a moment. What is it that draws you to interlacing them in the particular way that you did, that makes this non-habitual way create such different sensations for you? Switch them back for a moment to the way that you were interlacing them. I like to call this the old shoe. what's familiar, what's comfortable, what's habitual. And yet we all know with old shoes, sometimes we've worn them out to such a degree, they're so shaped and formed to our patterns that they really don't serve us any longer. And we buy a new pair of shoes and it feels so fresh, even though they're a little stiff and a little unfamiliar. So consciously shift your fingers over and just feel what's activated in your nervous system. And then bring your hands behind your head again. Bending your knees up. And slowly begin to alternate, pressing through your feet, rocking your pelvis, lifting your pelvis and parts of your lower back. Slowly, intentionally placing each of those back to the floor. And then bringing your elbows together, feeling what supports you as you lift your head and neck away from the floor, and placing those parts of your body gently back, connecting through your feet. And just do this a few times, alternating one and then the other, lifting and lowering, lifting and lowering. And notice the rhythm of your breath. Notice if there's any tension in your face, your jaw, your tongue. As you lift the pelvis and the lower vertebrae, feeling the movement and the connection all the way up your spine into your head. And as you lift your head and your neck, feeling how that movement influences and speaks to your lower back, your pelvis, and even your feet. And then let your pelvis down, let your arms down, and let your legs down and rest. Feeling now, what are you aware of as you lie here on the floor? What's connected, supported, relaxed? Can you feel more of yourself with each breath, in and out? What's your sense of your sacrum and your pelvis? The curve of your lower back away from the floor, where your spine makes contact again with the floor and curves away yet again behind your neck. Where do you feel the pressures on the right and the left side of your buttocks, your ribs, your shoulder blades? And then keeping some of your attention on the smooth rhythm of the breath as you inhale and exhale. Find a way to roll to your side in your own time, to come up to sitting and then standing. And once standing, take some time to just feel what you feel. Notice what new sensations are available to your nervous system. And it can be as unique and individual to each of you as you are in so many other ways. Thank you.